As everyone is aware, Los Angeles just experienced catastrophic wildfires. I think pretty much everyone in LA, at a minimum, knows someone who lost their home. I can only imagine how difficult a time it is. And unfortunately, in the midst of it, it is necessary to document what you previously owned based on memory and historical photos. The idea to put this video together came from a conversation I had with someone I know who lost their home. I'm not necessarily close with them, and financially I could never be of assistance to them, so I thought, what else can I do? So I said, this might sound silly, but you could send me photos and I could document what was in your home. This video will tackle my approach to identifying assets and the ability to do so for someone else's house in ways your friends and family who are unaffected by fire can help you document your lost assets. Because, my gosh, what an arduous process to write down every item that was in your home that no longer exists. But we have AI and ChatGPT now. I wonder if it can help. The short answer is yes, it can, but maybe not in the most expected ways. I'm going to share what I found. I will do my best to tag the video on different subjects covered, as the following is the organic way I approach this and it has not been optimized or reorganized. Yes, this is me being self-conscious about publishing content, but even if one piece of this helps even one person, it will have been worth it. I'm going to start off by using ChatGPT to identify, categorize, and estimate the value of items lost in a home fire. Here's what you will need in this process: a free ChatGPT account, Google Slides, Google Sheets, and your personal photos. These Google tools are free to access and use as long as you have a Gmail account, which is also free, and these tools enable easy sharing, which will be helpful. To start this process, I just wanted to see how good ChatGPT was at identifying items in a room, so I started with the stock image. In a few minutes, I'll be using more realistic photos that you would likely have in your camera roll. I started by identifying what I saw in the photo so I could compare it with what ChatGPT found. I found 21 items. Next, this is the prompt I gave ChatGPT. Hi, can you identify all of the things in this photo, including labeling the item like A1 lamp, an estimate of cost, and a link to replace the item? And these were the results. It says, looking at the uploaded image, I can identify the items and describe them based on the visible design and setup. Here's a list of items visible in the room. It ended with, if you want detailed pricing and replacement links for any of these items, as I'd originally asked, let me know which ones interest you and I'll help your research. To which I said, all of them, please. You see now we have an estimated cost and a replacement link. I do have to share that the links ChatGPT provided in this format were not always reliable. Sometimes the link wouldn't work at all. Sometimes the link would just send me to a generic homepage, like Amazon.com. When the links worked well, they would deep link to product pages. For example, if the item was a baby bouncer, the link would take me to an Amazon page with all baby bouncers and ones that looked like the one in the image I provided. Comparing my naked eye count versus ChatGPT's, we did have a variance. I had counted 21, ChatGPT found 12. Here's a few callouts. ChatGPT missed the end table that has the plant on it on the left, as well as the throw blanket. But the biggest reason for the variance was because at center, I counted each item on the coffee table separately, 1 vase, 2 books, where ChatGPT said decorative items on coffee table, 1 item. And this also happened with the items on the bookshelf, A10. ChatGPT also identified the wood paneling, where I did not count that as an item. Now, in respect to documentation for this process, I'm not just doing the illustration with the circles and text for the purposes of this demo. Personally, if I was documenting lost items via photos, I would keep this as a part of my records. How is it done? Just place your image into Google Slides, draw a circle, and next to it a text box. As you label items, you can copy and paste your circle text tag and place it next to different items. I moved on to a more realistic photo of a living room. I asked ChatGPT, can you identify all of the things in this photo, label them starting with LR1 for living room, provide an estimate of cost and a link to replace the item. Here's the list ChatGPT populated. Looking at what ChatGPT identified and missed, it identified 8 items. For some of the items it missed, the items only showed portions of that item. For example, there's just a sliver of a coffee table in the photo, as well as the baby play pad in the back. The baby chair in the front I followed up on. I took an individual screenshot of this baby chair and asked, what is this and how much is it? And ChatGPT said, it's a baby walker or activity walker. I said, no, it's a chair. ChatGPT thanked me for clarifying and then got it right. The link provided didn't work, but I followed up, and then ChatGPT sent me a working link with a very comparable chair. And then I wanted to follow up on the records. Based on the photo I shared, ChatGPT said 8 cubes visible. This is where the asset documentation process is like a spider web. I knew there were 2 record cases there, so I looked in my camera roll for a new photo that showed it better. In the new photo, I can count that there are 16 cubes at capacity. This is an example of following up with ChatGPT to rectify its knowledge. No, there are not 8 cubes at capacity, there are 16, and I very quickly got a revised count and estimate. In addition, in this photo, I see 2 lamps, a record player, and a speaker, among other things, and all will need to be tagged and added to the inventory. Next, I tried another image of the same room, different angle, different period of time. Keep in mind it matters how you phrase the question to ChatGPT. I would recommend once you find a prompt that you like, you reuse it. The prompt is what you say to ChatGPT. The response is what ChatGPT gives you back. Prompt and response. The response or results will have variances based on how you prompt it. It is something you realize and appreciate as you go. What happened to me? I started with the prompt on the left and I liked the results. But then later, instead of using my original prompt, I just said, can you do the same identification with this photo? ChatGPT gave me similar results, but I didn't like this output as much. What's not to like on the right? Well, instead of ChatGPT describing the item, like colorful baby activity center, it described where in relation to the room the item was, which I didn't need. So once you get a prompt and response combo you like, write it down, copy and paste it, and use it in all instances in the future. I moved back to using my original prompt, the one that I liked, but modified it just slightly to get ChatGPT to keep using unique identifiers. I don't want it starting with LR1 all over again, so I asked it to pick up where it left off. The prompt, can you identify all the things in this photo, including labeling the item like LR1 lamp, and an estimate of cost and a link to replace it? Can you start with LR9 as your first label? I asked it to start on LR9 as I had already identified 8 items in the previous photo, LR1 through LR8. Here are the results, and I'm going to talk about the ball and the standing lamp in a second. Here I labeled all of the items. In the middle is the balloon ChatGPT mistook for a ball, and then it misidentified a table lamp as a standing lamp. But clearly there's way more stuff in this photo than 13 items. So I asked ChatGPT to try again. I think there are way more items in this room. Can you try identifying all of them one more time? To which it said, here's a more detailed and thorough breakdown of the items, starting with LR9. Here are the new results. With the second attempt, ChatGPT identified the papasan chair, the lamps, a framed photo, and throw pillows. But at this point, you're probably thinking, ChatGPT is not that great at identifying items in a natural setting versus a stock photo. My response would be yes, I agree. But I also found these photos very quickly looking through my camera roll. Reviewing the differences between the stock photo and mine, I would suggest another aspect in this process. As you're looking through your camera roll, even if there are people in the photos, which there probably will be, try to find well-lit photos and photos with less depth. Later, I'll talk about how to find photos of your stuff in your house when you might be thinking, I don't have photos of the rooms of my house. I acknowledge a lot of the big items are still not documented. That said, I wanted to bring up 2 things. In this slide, there are 2 items that ChatGPT did find that I didn't: LED lights and balloons. The balloons I immediately dismissed as not an item to document, too small. But in researching how to do this process, every source says no item is too small. There's one YouTuber, Driven Saver, who made a good point saying, if you have a junk drawer where you have paper clips and you think, that's not property, it's just paper clips, ask, how much will it cost me to replace having paper clips? You will have to buy a whole new box. A box of paper clips at Target is $2. A bag of party balloons is $3 to $6. So anything you can identify in photos, even if it's small, write it down. There will be plenty of things that go missed, and you might as well take even the smallest wins. With that in mind, ChatGPT picked up on the LED lights that are installed behind the record cases. I never would have thought to document that as an asset. Something else this process highlighted that I previously wouldn't have given enough consideration is just because an item in a photo was no longer in whatever room, that doesn't mean you don't still own it. These are 2 photos of the same room. One is current and the other older. While I got rid of the 2 burlap rugs on the floor in the older right side photo, the printed rug is no longer in the living room, but it is in the garage. And you have to ask, did the garage burn down? So now to pivot and talk about where ChatGPT is helpful, because as we've seen, the item identification works, but is limited. I took one of the item outputs, copy and pasted it, and put it into Google Sheets. Each item will likely appear as one long sentence. I then used the split text to columns function a few times to break up the sentence into columns. This shows the process of splitting the columns. Here's the result. I also broke up the price range that ChatGPT supplies. A range like $5 to $15 in Google Sheets isn't useful because you can't do functions or equations on it. Personally, I would like to know the average price of the item and then be able to see a sum to see any type of approximation of loss. And if you try to do that with a column that indicates prices as ranges like $5 to $15, you can't do that. With these separate columns for low, high, and average, you can sum each one to get the estimate of each. On the low side, the value to date is $22.75. On the high side, $65.90. I also added a column for actual. As I mentioned before, the living room rug I have is fairly new, so I know I have a receipt for it. In this case, I don't want to use an estimated cost, I'll just use the actual cost. And you might say, well, you just took your reimbursement from $250 to $134.29. But the values here are solely an estimate for you to understand your losses. What an insurance company decides the reimbursement to be is a whole different matter, but the more information you can supply and receipts wherever possible, the better. Also, in doing research on this topic, every source said the insurance company will probably lowball you on your items. In order to have a chance to counter them, you need to have some data to cite. And here's the thing, by the time you're in this dispute with the insurance company, you will be exhausted and may be likely to say, fine, just give me whatever. So when you're here now documenting your assets, give future you as much knowledge as you can. And I'll say it over and over, let someone else help you with this. Doing this for yourself when your home is now gone, I honestly cannot imagine. Me doing this for a friend, I will put my little homework hat on and intensely try to figure out what you owned and do as much documentation and organization as possible to help you through. And I bet a lot of people know someone who wants to help but doesn't know how. In thinking about that conversation you will have with your insurance company, I will bring some levity to this depressing topic, citing Cher Horowitz from Clueless. In the movie, Cher tells her dad her report card isn't ready yet because some of her teachers are trying to lowball her, to which she says, I know how you say, never accept a first offer, so I figure these grades are just a jumping off point to start negotiations. Future you is going to have to negotiate with your insurance company. Have a strong portfolio of information to cite. This makes the next part very relevant. Labeling each item with a unique identifier or tag is incredibly important for numerous reasons. 1, you will be able to do a count of your items more easily. 2, you won't confuse items that you have more than one of. And 3, again, think about how this process will come to fruition. Let's say you have 4 beds and the insurance company says, we're going to give you $100 per bed, but you know you have a receipt for the primary bedroom bed. Giving each item a unique identifier enables you to more easily associate your reference materials. You can label your receipt with the same unique identifier you put on your primary bedroom bed, the line item on your inventory, and label photos which show that bed as proof it existed in your home. Getting back to my assets, in this example, my 2023 rug was assigned LR8 earlier, and this is the item I know I have a receipt for. I tried searching my email for rug or rug receipt with no luck, but I remembered I got this at Wayfair. So I went into my Wayfair account, found the invoice, downloaded it, and saved it by adding LR8 to the front of the file name. You will probably also find receipts in your email. If they're in your email, I recommend just forwarding the email to yourself and change the subject line to include the unique identifier. Then, at a later time, you can go back and print and save all of the email receipts at one time. In the spiderweb of documentation, this leads to another point. Anything you bought online has a digital footprint. When I logged into my Wayfair account, I remembered I also bought a bed frame, a table, a dresser, and some outdoor furniture over the years. I highly recommend recruiting a friend for this. Say, hey, here are my Wayfair credentials. Can you go in and download every invoice and add to the front of the invoice what the item is and the date it was purchased? Your friend doesn't need any context or information to do this for you. Name an online vendor and this will probably work. Amazon, Sephora, Home Depot, Best Buy, anywhere you have online shopped and you have an account. Yes, your friend helping you will have access to your account. Once they're done, go change the password. Doing this reminded me of something else. I remembered that for certain retailers, maybe all of them, you can request your privacy information. I've done this before for the Gap. You fill out a form, confirm your email, and then they will send you a document with all of the data they have on you, including your purchase history. I appreciate that everything I've discussed so far has been very digitally focused. Photos placed in Google Slides that are labeled and associated to a Google spreadsheet to be organized. Well, if you're not very computer savvy, let's talk about an alternative. Print your photos of your rooms on large paper at FedEx office, use stickers from the dollar store, or here are some at Amazon, Target, or Vons, to tag each item, and then number each sticker. I want to say print each photo on a tabloid piece of paper, which is 11 by 17 inches. Keep in mind how good and not distorted the photo looks will depend on the quality of the photo. For FedEx Office to print it, I think the photo will have to be in a PDF form. Folks at the store might be able to help you to get your photos from your camera roll to a print-ready format for them, or I would ask a computer-savvy friend or family member you have. Hey, I have some photos I need printed as big as possible. Could you place the images in a PDF for me to send to FedEx Office? Once you have the PDF, you can use FedEx Office's online portal, or you can call your specific store and ask them, hi, I need to have something printed. Can I have your email address? Each FedEx Office store has a unique email they can give you, which is great. So you don't have to use their online portal and you don't have to use their self-serve kiosks at the store either. So this is a mock-up of what this physical process of an item identification would look like. You would have your photo printed on a tabloid-sized paper and then have someone take the sticker dots and place them on each item and number the dot. I know these sticker dots come in smaller sizes, which might seem more ideal for dotting each item, but you will want to number each item. So I think the 3/4 of an inch option is probably the best, but up to you. As a next step, you could even start itemizing your room on a pad of paper. I would leave determining the value until later. I think take it one step at a time. First, sticker each item, next write each item on your pad and identify what it is, and later try to assign the value. We could discuss how you might leverage ChatGPT to determine those values as well. I wanted to talk a bit about what photos you have to use. As mentioned before, you might say, I don't have photos of my living room or of my kitchen, because you're probably thinking of a photo just of that space, that you intentionally took of that space. What you probably have are photos of people inside those spaces. Your photos are likely in Google Photos or Apple Photos, and hopefully backed up to a cloud. Regardless, you can search these photos. Open your photo app. In Google, at the bottom right, there's a looking glass that says search, and in Apple Photos, at the top right, there's a looking glass that indicates search. In these platforms, I even tried searching, quote, living room, no people in it, unquote, and actually got a lot of results. That said, for this purpose, I think the better photos I found did have people in them. Either way, it really doesn't matter. You are just looking for photos that show your stuff. Let's say you don't have any, or you don't have any very good ones. The next thing I would recommend is to think of events you have hosted at your house or when you've had people over. Again, this is an opportunity to ask your friends and recruit your friends. Put the task on them. Say, have you ever been to my house? For you, it was probably just like any other day. You live there. You're there all the time. But for someone visiting you, they may have a better recollection of having been there. And then ask, do you have any photos? This too will be a spider web of a process, meaning it's iterative in nature. Here's how I think about it. Let's say you reach out to a friend. Have you been here? They say, yes, remember you hosted a barbecue last year. You say, can you please figure out who was at that party and reach out to them for their photos and see what folks have that shows my stuff. Personally, I prefer Google Photos, but both Google and Apple enable very easy photo sharing. Set up individual albums for each room of your house and then add to them. And ask your friends and family to do the same. Or better yet, ask someone else to run point. Can you reach out to the family and have them share their photos to this link of each room of my house? Something else to keep in mind when you're looking through your photos is to review specific dates. I found when searching living room, Google provided me a lot of photos of people in my living room. This identified for me some key times I knew I was taking a lot of photos in my living room, but the search function might not be showing all of the photos. Google certainly cannot discern that right now you're actually looking for photos of your stuff in your living room. So it might just be showing you most of the photos of people in your living room. So if searching living room, you see a number of photos on, for example, November 15th, 2024, then go to all of the photos on November 15th, 2024 and review. Don't exclusively rely on the keyword search. There are also probably some specific times of the year that result in a lot of photos. My apologies for having to bring this up, but Christmas morning, for example, birthdays, holidays, searching these key event days like quote-unquote Christmas morning or quote-unquote 4th of July will look beyond just the most recent holiday and show you all holidays the photo search engine can match in your camera roll. If you have been impacted by these fires, I am truly sorry for your losses. I hope I have been able to supply any bit of information to help the asset documentation process or enable you to take your friends and family up on offers to help, even help from afar. Everything I've discussed today can be done with a computer and an internet connection. Thank you.